The church was opened in 1833 when the area was mainly green fields, and it was this place of big mansions where all these kind of significant influential people lived. And then you got the armaments factory, Armstrong's, established down on the riverside. The whole area became heavily industrialised. There's a lot of building, a lot of terraced houses. It became a very dense urban area. And then as the industry declined and you had housing redevelopment, the population fell again, and it sort of changed very much. You've now got quite a poor population on average. In the financial sense, it's one of the most disadvantaged areas in the country. Also, a very ethnically diverse population. The church has done a lot of work in the community. Set up 2 community projects, Cornerstone and the Good Neighbour project, in areas that were suffering particular problems, and he needed the work to be done to support the community and kind of help them rebuild it, as it were. They're also responsible for setting up the credit union in the area and various other projects. So when they approached me in 2009 to ask if I'd do a study for them to find out what other uses there could be for their church building, I was quite positive about it. I know I'd never worked for a church before, because I knew that they weren't just looking for an excuse to get their building done up, that they really genuinely wanted to know what the local community wanted and needed. At that point, as you'll have noticed, the church building was in a very, very poor condition. It had sort of deteriorated over the years, and the congregation couldn't afford to repair it, with the roof that's leaking and crumbling plaster, electricals that are on their last legs, the heating system that works quite erratically. And there's an awful lot that needed to be done, but more significantly, the building was a lot larger than was needed for the needs of the congregation. So the obvious thought was, what else could be done with the building? So we talked to best part of 500 people, a lot of community groups and organisations, find out what people thought of the building, what they thought was needed in the area. I came to realise that it was quite a significant building architecturally and historically, and I think that would have been recognised a lot more widely if it had been in another part of the city. But there's something about, Benwell and Scotswood policy makers and funders see it through the prism of poverty and deprivation, and it hadn't really been recognised that what you had was a sort of jewel in terms of the heritage of the city. The graveyard's the same age as the church, very old historic graveyard, which contains about, not very good on numbers, maybe 13,000 people are buried there, and that includes some of the most powerful, richest, influential people on Tyneside in the 19th and early 20th century, because those were the sort of people who kind of lived in the mansions and big houses around the area and went to St James's Church and were buried there. And the graveyard plan had been lost over the years, so I thought, well, I know quite a few people around the community who are interested in local history. Maybe we could sort of get together a little project for some people to come together, and we can actually map the graves and reproduce the graveyard plan. So put the word around, and quite a few people came forward. And really the church actually as such wasn't particularly actively involved in that. It was mainly people who aren't sort of church members, but who just had a sort of love for local history and an interest in it. So we came together for what I thought would be a short-term project to map the graves in the graveyard. But if you'd seen it 3 or 4 years ago, it was in an incredible state, the graveyard. It was completely overgrown. You could hardly see a single grave. It was covered in brambles and ivy and full of filth and rubbish. So in order to map the graves, we had to sort of start with our loppers and scythes and what have you.
Oh, right.
So what are you doing here then, Ted?
Clearing this weed. Clearing the weed.
Why'd you like coming to the church, Ted?
Well, it just grows on you.
We love it.
We do it, become
Yeah.
I'm one of the founder members, and
Hard
just
work.
like the place, you know.
Aye, right. Yeah, come every week, come all
And
weathers.
this-
Snow, rain.
yeah, 52 weeks a year,
Aye,
and there's always plenty to do.
aye.
How much has it changed the last...
Quite a lot. This where we're standing now, you couldn't see any graves, you couldn't see any headstones. for a mass of ivy that over the years, while it had been neglected, this ivy took over, and there was lots of these headstones. The only clue you got, it was like there was like a hump, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just like a hump, and then you used to go and hook them. Ah, there's a stone there.
So how long is the gardening? Is it the gardening group or the volunteer, the church? What would you call it? The graveyard group?
One commonly known as the graveyard group.
We should change the name.
And how long?
Likely known as the graveyard.
How long's it been going for?
4 years. 4 years this month.
And it's really come on in those 4 years.
Well, it's beginning to show we're
Getting on top of things.
the fruits of our labour begin to show now.
3 months.
The group kept coming back every week to sort of clear it and map it. And in fact, I'd only ever expected it to last for a few weeks, but you know, people would have their cup of tea and biscuit at the end, and they'd say, right, we'll see you at the same time next week. And I realised after a while that we actually had an organisation there. So we decided to set up our own organisation, which is an independent community organisation called the St James's Heritage and Environment Group. And it has formal links with the church, which is obviously important because it's their graveyard. A lot of people have taken part in the different things that we've done. It's hundreds of people from all sorts of places who come in for different reasons. So on a Tuesday afternoon we have a regular drop-in, which is open for anybody to come along to look around the graveyard, to look at whatever exhibition we have in the church at that time. We also do impromptu tours of the church. It's not like coming to a big formal museum in a way where you kind of come in as a consumer of history and you don't interact really with the institution or the people. I think most people who come in, we get something from them as much as they get from us. You know, they'll tell us something about their family history. So, you know, you can build bridges and people can get to know each other, and it's all about, you know, that overworked phrase, community cohesion, I suppose. I wouldn't have believed when we started 3 years ago that a graveyard could be so interesting, but it is just an amazing resource for exploring and learning about the history of the area and celebrating it.